Hi, I'm Mandy Morris. I'm a licensed professional counselor and a certified EMDR clinician. And today I want to talk with you all about what to do when you get triggered. A trigger is a paired association. So what that means is your mind is associating what's presently going on to something that's happened in your past. This is why if we get overwhelming feelings that seem to be disproportionate to what's happening, or they feel uncontrollable, it may not actually be entirely about what's happening presently, but maybe something that you've been through that before and your subconscious is now picking up on it. This can happen a lot for people. It's very common, and especially if you've had any past trauma in your life. Think about it in terms of like your hand getting poison ivy. Okay, so say you're out in the field and you're doing some gardening, whatever, and you get poison ivy. When that happens, it just spreads. And the goal isn't to itch and scratch it or to start judging or shaming it. The idea is to do something to get yourself to calm down as quickly as possible, to get the rash to calm down. And so that metaphor for the mind is really important. But there's a more in-depth tool you can use to deal with triggers to really help yourself get to the root of what's going on. For this exercise, I want you to get out a piece of paper, something to journal with, something to write with. And you're going to want to pause this tool at a certain point so that you can take some time and do your writing and reflecting. Then just unpause it when you're ready, and then I will begin to help you process it. Now that you have your paper or your journal, I want you to write down what triggered you. Maybe it was your boss at work, maybe it was something that happened at a grocery store or with a friend. I want you to write down what happened, and then I want you to write the question, who else has treated you this way before where you felt similarly? Take a minute, write that down. Before we get into answering that question, I really want you to think about some context around this past experience. How old were you? How did you feel? What was going on? What was the situation? Really kind of wrap your mind around all of it. For a lot of people, a lot of their trauma happens in childhood or younger years. I want you to take that into consideration. And now what I want you to do is I want you to answer that question. I want you to write a letter to your past self about what that felt like, what you wish you could say to your past self, if you could go back in time, all of that. And just take a minute, do some reflecting, do some journaling. You can go ahead and hit the pause button now. And when you're ready, you can pick back up with me. So now that you've done your journaling exercise, I want you to take a deep breath. And as you breathe out, just really release the feelings. Be proud of yourself for having the courage to revisit something that was really difficult and hard. For the last part of this exercise, it's going to be a final writing part that feel free to do other creative work with it as well. Some people like to really get into this work and do art with it or music with it, whatever you may want to do. But I want you to imagine that you have an opportunity now to visit that past self and put your arm around him or her. And you finally get to say with compassion what you wanted to say, what that younger version of yourself needed to hear. Just take a few minutes. I want you to write that down. Go ahead and pause the video again. And when we come back, we're going to wrap up. So now that you've done that final part, I really just want you to reflect on key words that came out. Maybe there are words of hope, words of encouragement, words of truth. And I want you to maybe write those words, put them somewhere where you can see them. But the goal is now that anytime you get triggered, instead of reacting as that maybe past self would have reacted, or reacting out of defensiveness or anger or rage or breaking down into tears, I want you to imagine that you say these things to yourself, and actually in your mind when it happens. We were talking about with the poison ivy and the rash spreading on the hand. This is like the soothing ointment. When you can go back through and you can say those things to yourself that you needed to hear back then that you still need to hear now. And that's going to help calm you down. So I hope this helped. I hope you have a new tool in place to deal with triggers, and take good care of yourselves.